Donald Trump is going to be impeached by the House of Representatives and sent to trial in the United States Senate. Rudy Giuliani is under criminal investigation for his activities involving Ukraine, and Gordon Sondland might be next. Last week on this program, Congressman Peter Welch made news when he said Donald Trump's ambassador to the European Union, Gordon Sondland, could face perjury charges. Is Gordon Sondland in danger of perjury charges for his testimony to your committee?
Well, I think he is. You know, when he presented himself, he was kind of a rich guy who bought an ambassadorship, and he pretended that it was a good day for him. He got a job he wanted, but he was pretty naive that he didn't know the real meeting was going on in the room next door. But, of course, the evidence is now coming out that, in fact, he was a very active instrument to try to essentially assist Giuliani in the effort to have this rogue foreign policy. So, yes, I think Ambassador Sondland has some reason to be worried about how his testimony is going to be evaluated when reviewed by potential prosecutors.
That was right after Ambassador William Taylor testified in direct contradiction to Gordon Sondland's testimony. And yesterday it got worse for Gordon Sondland when Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman also testified in direct contradiction to Gordon Sondland's under oath testimony. Congressman Joaquin Castro tweeted, based on all the testimony so far, I believe that Ambassador Gordon Sondland committed perjury. Last night on this program, Congressman Sean Patrick Maloney, who was in the room for Colonel Vindman's deposition yesterday, said this.
I think Ambassador Sondland ought to read his transcript very carefully, and he ought to see whether his recollection or whether his ability to answer in more complete ways has been enhanced. Let me put it that way. I think Ambassador Sondland is at the heart of this thing, and he owes us truthful testimony, all of it, and that is in his own best interest.
Joining us now, a member of the House Intelligence Oversight Committees who has been in the room for these depositions, Democratic Congressman Peter Welch of Vermont. Congressman, thank you very much for joining us again on this question. And let's just take a look at the evidence here in what could be the basis of a perjury charge against Gordon Sondland based on what Colonel Vindman said yesterday. Here's Colonel Vindman's testimony. He's in his opening statement. He said, Ambassador Sondland started to speak about Ukraine, delivering specific investigations in order to secure the meeting with the president, at which time Ambassador Bolton cut the meeting short. Following this meeting, there was a scheduled debriefing during which Ambassador Sondland emphasized the importance that Ukraine deliver the investigations into the 2016 election, the Bidens, and Burisma. I stated to Ambassador Sondland that his statements were inappropriate, that the request to investigate Biden and his son had nothing to do with national security, and that such investigations were not something the NSC was going to get involved in or push. Dr. Hill then entered the room and asserted to Ambassador Sondland that his statements were inappropriate. And Gordon Sondland apparently says that none of that happened. Here's what we have from Gordon Sondland in his opening statement under oath. He said, we had regular communications with the NSC about Ukraine both before and after the July meeting, and neither Ambassador Bolton, Dr. Hill, nor anyone else on the NSC staff ever expressed any concerns to me about our efforts or, most importantly, any concerns that we were acting improperly. Congressman Welch, someone's not telling the truth there.
Well, that's right. And I think Sondland has a lot of explaining to do. But, you know, what it's really pointing out is that there's two categories of witnesses here. There's the political class, and I put Sondland in that category, and it's pretty sordid. It's about being self-serving. It's about doing whatever the president's bidding is. It's about making it up as you go along, and it's about concealing what you're doing. And then there are the civil servant witnesses, like the people today, like Ambassador Taylor. And it's about duty. Those folks are inspiring. They are about teamwork. It's about long-term service of our country. And that's what's the inspiring part. But we've got the sordid. And I'd put Sondland in that category, quite frankly. He bought an ambassadorship. He wanted to please the president. He had no long-term commitment to what the Ukraine policy has traditionally been, even one, by the way, that John Bolton supported, to root out corruption in Ukraine and defend it from foreign aggression. So Sondland's got a lot of explaining to do, but he was clearly doing the bidding of the president.
Now, we all know it was public information that Sondland was offered the standard opportunity in these situations to review the transcript of his deposition to see if there was anything in there that he might want to try to correct. But there are some limitations on what you're allowed to correct in those review sessions, aren't there?
Well, there are. I mean, you can correct, if it's not stated correctly, you can correct it, or if you misspoke, you can say that. But I think changing your answer day as night, that doesn't work so well. But we'll see. I mean, the bottom line here is that it's very clear that Sondland was one of the three amigos, that he knew what the real Ukraine policy was from the president, and that was essentially to get them to agree to do the investigation of the Bidens. So he knew that even as he was working in the regular ranks of the ambassadorial class on the so-called long-term policy, which people like Ambassador Taylor and even John Bolton thought they were working on, corruption and thwarting Russian aggression.
And in the normal course of a situation like this, if you were going to refer that testimony for a perjury prosecution, you'd be sending it over to what is now William Barr's Justice Department. But the committee can wait until there is a new Justice Department after the next presidential election and send it over then. That might be something that Gordon Sondland isn't aware of.
Well, it's possible. And look, everybody is accountable, and everyone owes themselves to be brought to justice for whatever they may have done. But right now, the focus obviously is on what was the president's policy. And the big question is, can a president of the United States solicit aid for his campaign from a foreign power, and in order to get that, withhold congressionally approved military aid? That's really what the question is. So Sondland, for whatever he did, and I think he was doing the bidding of the president, is a sideshow. What really is at the heart of this is what was in that presidential call to President Zelensky of the Ukraine.
Congressman Peter Welch, thank you very much for joining us again. We really appreciate it. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on the button below for more from The Last Word and the rest of MSNBC.